Elon Musk indeed dropped a bombshell for Tesla stock investors late in the trading day today. Now, we also have a warning sign potentially in the broader markets, and you need to know this by tomorrow morning. Because tomorrow morning, we're going to get some very important economic data that could massively affect your GDP estimates, which is the gauge that most people look at to determine whether the economy is weakening or not. So first and foremost, let's start with what Elon Musk said today. He said that he requested what he thinks is an important design change to the front and extra time that allows Tesla to show off a few other things. Now, I'm not sure what a few other things actually implies. That doesn't tell us much, but it does tell us that we are expecting a product, not just a concept for the Robotaxi event. Now, the two are very different. A concept is more hype in nature with no timelines. A product is something that relatively soon could be brought to the markets, and it appears like that's what we're gearing up for when we do get the Robotaxi event. And honestly, I find it very encouraging that Tesla held up a vast majority of the gains you've seen today, in spite of Elon actually confirming that the Robotaxi event is delayed. Which technically in this post that Elon Musk commented on, it says this: did Elon Musk suggest a massive engineering change that left Tesla engineers speechless? Yes. Is the event delayed? Not yet. So, in all actuality, Elon did not officially confirm that it is delayed, but kind of implied to that. I'm still thinking, if possible, Elon Musk wants to have the Robotaxi event on August 8th, and Tesla's probably trying to figure out how they can make these changes and also keep the same timeline for the Robotaxi event. Because again, as I have said now in 2 other videos, just knowing Elon from a distance, I can say I know Elon well enough to say that he probably wants to screw the shorts here. He probably wants to screw the people that started to bet against Tesla in recent days. So we will see what happens in the subsequent following days, but long story short, this delaying of the Robotaxi event has had very little impact on Tesla stock. And this leads me to be even more bullish on Tesla, because now the odds are even better that we are going to be very impressed. And that's what investors want and need out of Tesla, is an event that is impressive, but most importantly, a successful event. Meaning we actually get a timeline for the Robotaxi network. The worst possible scenario for the Robotaxi event would be if we get the event and no guidance for the start of the Robotaxi. That's the worst case scenario. You want to see the start of this in 2025. That's the best case scenario. The more worst case scenario is 2026 or 2027, although I think if Tesla's holding this event now, they want to launch the Robotaxi network within the next 12 months, so that would still leave you in 2025. And let me remind you what Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas just said about the delayment of the Robotaxi event today. Morgan Stanley does not think a delay in the Robotaxi event would be a negative. Analyst Adam Jonas and his team see scope for the postponed Robotaxi day to highlight more of Tesla's embodied AI capabilities beyond app-based autonomous cars. The firm expects Tesla's master plan forward to be underpinned by its commercial ambitions in AI, robotics, and hybrid compute, including distributed thermal and compute in the car that spans from cloud to edge. Over the next few months and quarters, we expect to see the world of Gen AI, digital AI assistants, colliding with the automotive ecosystem, noted Jonas. There are other potential problems going on with our markets, and I'll explain if this could be a problem for Tesla stock as well. At the bare minimum, it's a big red flag that more selling could come to stocks. What I'm referencing is simply the VIX that is up over 4% today, as the S&P is up 0.5%. Now, the VIX monitors puts and calls that are placed on our markets. Typically, on green days, especially significant green days like we've seen today, you normally get more calls than puts. But today, you're getting more puts than calls. heading into important data tomorrow morning could be a red flag that more volatility is coming into markets. I also think another potential risk to our markets that is kind of being underlooked is the potential of Joe Biden stepping down. It's being reported today by Politico that former Speaker Nancy Pelosi is convinced Biden will lose and has been working the phones since June 27th in hopes of finding a way to ease him off the ticket. And the Democratic nomination needs to be finalized by early August, so this is kind of a short-term risk to markets. If Biden were to step down and someone were to step up, that could create a lot more near-term uncertainty around the election. And as you guys know, markets don't like uncertainty. Good news is the percent of stocks currently above their 50-day moving average is at about 66%, which is in a much healthier place than it was prior. But then the bears are going to say, as a contrarian indicator, if stocks are now doing better and there's better participation, doesn't that finally mean maybe you see the markets fall again? And I think that could potentially be another interesting argument. Now, the data that we are going to get tomorrow morning can be very consequential to our markets for these reasons. Number one, we get retail sales, export prices, and import prices month over month, including year over year export prices and import prices year over year, retail sales excluding gas and autos, retail sales excluding autos, lots of different data points here. But the main bottom line is this: the consumer makes up 2/3 of the economy. If the consumer did poorly in June, that's a bad thing for GDP, but that also could be a bad thing for corporate America and corporate earnings. If people are slowing down the rate in which they're spending money, that's not going to be good for earnings expectations. Now, I know just 1 month's worth of data is nothing to be alarmed of, but you were negative 0.2% month over month in April, and then you were only positive 0.1%. So if you're looking at a month over month change here, really in the last 2 months, you've actually been negative 0.1% for retail sales. If retail sales do come in negative again, then that number is going to be pushed even more negative, because remember, you're looking at month over month. So for an example, looking at March of 2024, you were positive 0.5%. And then you were negative 0.2%. So the real change there is 0.3% in that 2-month basis. But from April 0.2% negative to May 0.1% positive, you're actually negative 0.1%. So if you come in positive 0.1%, you're a 0% change for the last 3 months. That's still not great. But if you come in negative, then you're actually getting into deeper negative territory for the last 3 months, which was this quarter earnings that we are getting reported. Hopefully that makes some sense, but bottom line, your retail sales will affect your earnings estimates, and it could cause a little bit more fear, or maybe take some of the fear away from earnings. I still am a little concerned, obviously, as I've said in many videos now, about your big tech earnings. I don't think Apple on a risk to reward basis looks good heading into earnings at $235 per share. Like, what news are we going to get that is not already priced in after this massive rally that Apple has seen in the last couple of weeks? I think the same is true for Nvidia, maybe to a lesser extent. I think maybe they could surprise the upside. Betting against Nvidia, typically has not done well in the last 2 years. But same applies for Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. All of these companies trading at or near all-time highs today. It's just, where's the upside here? Where's the alpha to this earnings season? I don't think it's going to come from big tech. And when big tech, your Super 6 or Mag 7 is 40% of the S&P, I think that's a reason to be a little defensive. And your retail sales estimates for tomorrow morning, month over month, is 0%. And some economists think this number could come in way negative, and that would obviously be bad for markets. Export prices month over month are expected to fall negative 0.3%, and import prices are expected to fall negative 2% month over month. So it looks like, based on the estimates here, we can probably expect a GDP revision downwards. And perhaps this is why the VIX spiked today on such a strong day overall for markets. I mean, look at small caps, up another 2.2%. Some individuals on Wall Street are even suggesting that small caps and equal weight S&P, which is hitting a new high new all-time high for equal weight S&P. The Russell is hitting a new high you have not seen since early 2022. They're just suggesting that this could be a tactical short squeeze. And after that short squeeze, you could be back to more selling. Although I don't necessarily agree with that take, you have seen the Russell go straight up and you have seen a lot of short covering. Now, what does this ultimately mean for Tesla? Well, I think a lot of a correction, if we get it, could be a rotational correction. Now, it comes down to the economy. If the economy weakens, if there are more recession calls out there on Wall Street, then obviously you're going to go through a more broad-based correction. And I would imagine in that environment, Super 6, Mag 7, probably include Tesla in that to some extent, would do a little bit better because those top names are seen as kind of a flight to safety, if anything. But it's really hard to tell at this point because we don't know how fast the economy is weakening, and that's why tomorrow morning will be so important. We could get a correction in our markets with just big tech coming in line with estimates for their earnings, not really impressing investors, and that area of the market's falling. You could also get a correction with a little bit of, underwhelming earnings, but also economy weakening that could affect Tesla a little bit more. My expectation is I think Tesla will do well regardless, especially heading into the Robotaxi event. Now, the next big catalyst for Tesla is obviously Tesla earnings, which will be on July 23rd, not this week. But next week, we know the numbers are going to be pretty good. We do want to see how much that interest rate buy down has hit margins. If that's potentially not as bad for margins as we think, that will be also very important. But I think the single biggest driver for Tesla stock from now until, the Robotaxi event itself is likely going to be positioning back into Tesla and the revealing of these cheaper next generation vehicles. That is something a lot of us, including myself and other analysts, are starting to expect will happen or take place on Tesla's next earnings. And if that happens on Tesla's next earnings, that's going to give Wall Street another reason to get even more excited on Tesla, and they're going to have to start modeling what those new models could do to Tesla's business. And that would be a big positive for Tesla. So believe it or not, at the same time, I am a little concerned about the markets here just being overextended, expectations for earnings priced to perfection. I do think some areas can continue to work. Stocks that may benefit from a Trump presidency, as that is firmly priced in, is going to happen, which is obviously Tesla, as you've seen today. Some of your more interest rate sensitive stocks can definitely do well, I believe, in this market environment. But with that said, let me know what you think about this information down below in the comment section. And again, just to reiterate, I still think Tesla can hit new all-time highs by the end of this year. So I think today's price of around $256 per share or so for Tesla is still a really good value. So again, let me know what you think about this information down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Tesla to the moon! Tesla to the moon! But yeah, nonetheless, you guys have a great night, and I will see you in the next one.